Okay, so hi, my name is Ed, and I know that at one time I was thinking about doing this, and I don't know if I ever did. And because it's not on the YouTube videos that I've done in the past, I know I hadn't done it, but I really felt compelled to doing it more now today than I have ever been. And I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a degree in psychology. I don't have a degree in psychiatry. But the one thing I did, see today and in the past that has not really changed with Dcfs in California, which is the Department of Children and Family Services, is for the person who's encountering a problem or is in the system, is actually the person that's hurt, trying to give them hope. And that's what my message is here, is to give those that don't really have an answer to what to do and how to do something. I want my story to be something to bring hope and encouragement to the person who's listening to this, who's maybe connected into the system unexpectedly like I was, because it wasn't something that I was forming a mutual habit to be caught into DCFS for child endangerment or child abuse. So with that being said, all across, I am not a person who knows the answers to everybody's problems. I don't want to be that kind of person here that explains this is what you ought to do and how you ought to do. I just want to explain and express this is what I did, and its only purpose is to give hope or encouragement to someone, rather than making a spontaneous reaction and response to the situation, which may lead to an Amber Alert or may lead to a means of trying to escape from the situation, or try to abduct children and run off with them. Those are easy way outs that lead back into a more major problem. I did not take that approach when I got into the system, and I'm going to explain exactly what happened. This, for me, it took place about 15 years ago and 13 years ago. 15 years ago, I was in an emergency with my dad, and unfortunately at that time, I got caught in a child endangerment issue. My kids started a tiny little fire in an apartment, which brought the police and the fire department there, and I was arrested. The second situation that occurred was 2 years later, where I went from a felony down to a misdemeanor, and it was locked as a misdemeanor. As I was disciplining my son, my oldest son, for doing things that I told him not to do several times. And he got a bruised arm on the account of it, and this LA Unified School saw it, and they basically arrested me for child abuse. So all that being said and done, that was a time in my life where I kind of like threw in the towel, and I even for myself, no one really cared, because they looked at me as a criminal, and because they looked at me as being a criminal, there was no hope for me. So I became more suicidal at that time. And this is one of the things I have to give credit to my sister for encouraging me to do the right thing. And most of all, I give credit to God for giving me to realize that He's with me through this situation. And He truly was. The children came back to my life a couple years later, and I got the criminal records expunged about 9 years ago. So, but I want to share the pain that occurred and the things that I saw in family court. And I know there's a lot of heartbroken parents that have gone through something where the system says, we're going to investigate these things and we're going to determine whether there is a problem with you. And normally they will, because they'll kind of centralize and focus on the issue. In the case with me, it was a bruised arm. And because of that issue being as it was with photos taken, they had the evidence to prove that I was wrong. I had an attorney that really wasn't helpful to me at that time, and after the fact that I had admitted that I did something wrong, he kind of told me that we could have fought the situation and won. Well, whether it was that we were able to win or not, I just look at the factor of who were the key components to help me at that time. Granted, my family didn't know the answer because this was a situation. Dcfs started in '96, so in California. I kind of fell into it about 8 years later, so it was still kind of a new kind of situation or laws that were built to protect the children, and I respect that highly. But the thing that I don't respect is the factor that they looked at me as being a criminal, and rather than giving me hope to see something change, it was something that was, I had no hope. And it seemed as though, I was just a bad person. I had the first attempt, because a part of being in the system is to it was to find a psychologist. I did. He was more of a psychiatrist, and for 2 months being with him, he looked at me as being a lunatic, as one that needed to be on medications, and he gave me no hope. These were the things that bugged me so much, because I was looking for an answer, and he could not answer it back to me, because as much as I was bugging him, he would not give it to me. There was a controlling environment with that person, and I highly stress to people that when you do follow the system, they're looking for you to get a psychologist or get into some help programs like parenting or domestic violence. There were a couple programs that they were putting me into, along with seeking out a psychologist. The first person I had was wrong, and I had to start all over again. And I went to the psychologist of my wife's at that time, because she was involved with the program with the psychologist too, and she was a part of the system as well. The thing that gave me hope was hearing my psychologist said, "Ed, you're going to get your children back. We're going to work on this together to get them back." And he had the control of designating and dictating to Dcfs what I needed to have and what I did not need to have. So that brought the confidence in my heart, where I said, if it takes a month or 2 months or 2 years, as long as I can get my kids back, that was the key. And that other person believed in me and my story and what I was going through. Rather than putting me into condemnation, he put me into comfort and hope. So my message to anybody that's encountering a situation where they're in the system right now and they don't know the answer, because Dcfs will not give you 100% the answer. They will not give you the books and say this is how our process works. You usually have to pick it out. And there was one time on the internet that I did see some sort of documentation on it, but it's no longer there. So with that being said, my message is still available, and I can give some help to people, not from a legal or a professional standpoint, but from one who's gone through it. That's all I can offer. That's all I will offer and share. Don't need to end up being in a car chase or an Amber Alert, for the sake of I can't solve this problem. It seems like nobody cares. There are people that care. It's just that it's not always what you see face value. And my story here is not to show some hidden agenda. It's not to get any money out of it, but it's to share hope that there is a solution to the problem. If there's something that I can do to, give some guidance and prayer, I mean, just from a free position, just comment below, or pretty much comment below, and I can try to find a way of connecting with you that would, kind of bring some understanding in regards to it. But you don't have to fight the battle by yourself, and it's really not you to be fighting it anyways. A good attorney would also have given me the hope too. One that would say, hey, I read your information, your testimony, I've seen the testimony of the other people. I really believe that we can win this battle in court, and that they can't fight it because there's too many holes. That's what an attorney should be doing. But I got an attorney that says, well, it's up to you to decide whether you want to tackle it or you don't want to tackle it. That didn't help me much in terms of dealing with my situation, getting the kids back. Kids are back. We're all living in harmony. I'll tell you from one of my son's stories about DCFS. He felt like that they did the wrong thing to help them. And that's another thing that I don't think DCFS does, is they don't talk to people years later and say, hey, we just want to see how you're doing. We want to end up talking to you about, your experience with us 8 years ago or 4 years ago. There's no real follow-up. I mean, this is all like a assembly line process. They get the documentation, they have information and credible for attorneys to fight in court, but that's as far as it is. It's all a business. It's not a matter of, we're here to help you. So that's where something like maybe my story, I'm sure that there's others that have stories like this too. I'd love to hear what your story was with DCFS and how you overcame too, because this is a story that really needs to be helped amongst the people that get in the family court, and I see them after they leave at the family court and their children are taken away from them, and they're crying. Their heart is literally stripped and damaged, and there is no sense of comfort and hope at that time. If you're going through that situation now, I'm praying that this message will bring some hope and comfort to you, and as opposed to doing something that DCFS does or the law does, which doesn't give you much hope at all. It just basically shows you did wrong and we're going to punish you. That's not, to me, what is Christ? What is the Word of God? What is the most dynamic thing I could do towards anybody in life today? Is it to judge them? No. What I learned about judgment, according to Scripture, is mercy triumphs over judgment. And I had to learn that. And once I learned and understood that, that's where I started to be a more human and real-like person but also a person in Christ. So I just want to encourage those that are going through a situation. Don't make wrong decisions. Definitely get help. Talk to people. Find who's working with you. I mean, if DCFS is not going to help you, then go to Plan B. Go to an attorney. If the attorney is not going to help you, in those two cases with me, none of them were working, go to a psychologist. But if the psychologist is not helping you, find another psychologist. Because the bottom line behind it is that person works for you. That person does not work against you. The psychologist can end up sending reference information back to DCFS to give them the insights and the requests they need to, basically help you or help me as being a part of being involved in the system. So I hope that this message is helpful to you. And like I said, send any comments or subscribe below. Greatly appreciate it, but it's more for you than it is for me, because I've already been through it, per se. I was a person in the system. I was a victim of a crime, but I was not considered a criminal. I am considered a person who had a situation. We all make mistakes. All of us do. If Dcfs thinks that we're not supposed to make mistakes, I would rather see them be in the hot seat in a criminal situation, because we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. So have a great day. God bless you.